Well, yikes.
Yikes. I don't know about that one. I'll have to get a different one.
Okay, quote of the day. There is nothing... Oh, shit, I fucked that up. Quote of the day. There is no new thing under the sun. It's from the Bible. Remember that. I'm Lex, and this is Laura Mars, and this is the Jig Is Up podcast. We'll just call it the Jig Is Up, probably.
Jig Is Up, the Jig.
Episode numero uno.
Yay. Round 2.
Yeah. We recorded like an hour and a half, and we didn't actually get it recorded, so this is take 2. So I guess we're going to have to explain ourselves all over again. Mm-hmm. We're just 2 normal people, 2 apes, banging on this complex machine with sticks. The complex machine is the human condition, by the way. And we're new to this thing. So our whole goal with the podcast is simple and complex, hard to explain, but you'll see. So essentially,
there's a lot to unravel.
Yeah. And this is why there's going to be many episodes. Our whole goal with this podcast is to articulate subjects that we find to be fascinating, important, things that can improve our lives, as well as hopefully try to let people know what they don't know so that they can improve their lives as well.
It seems to be working for us. So we want to share that.
We want to share the things that we've done. We want to share the things that we want to do. And we want to share the things that we plan to do. And then in the hopes that other people will look at these and ask themselves, is this a good idea? Is this good advice? Because it's a lot more convincing if you take advice from somebody that has done it already and has been successful. Because the last thing you should do is listen to losers. Which
people that haven't come to the question themselves yet. It's not like they have any answer or an idea of an answer anyway to try.
Exactly.
So we have an idea. We don't have the answers. We have ideas.
We have ideas. We don't have the answers. That's a really good tagline. So what does the podcast name stand for? What does it mean to you? What is the Jig Is Up?
I was thinking about that actually the other day. The Jig Is Up. Every time I think about it, when I play it to myself, I think like the jig is up, the bullshit's over. Like everybody sees, everybody knows you're lying to yourself. I'm lying to myself right now. Fucking stop it, and just the jig's up. So start working hard. Stop making excuses.
Yeah.
Everybody's got that same excuse as you.
Yeah.
That's when I think of it, I guess for the most part, that's what I think.
Yeah. I think of what we recorded before, which was, it's too late to be unconscious. You gotta wake up. And this isn't the political idea. Some people call this red pilling. Or the Great Awakening. It's not really a political thing. You don't have to be a conservative or a liberal or whatever. You're either awake and you understand what's going on in our lifetime, what's going on in the world, the things that we face, or you're unconscious. You're a sleeper. Or a deep sleeper.
Deep sleeper. I'll explain that one.
Yeah. And
soon. So
if none of this appeals to you, then turn the podcast off and
maybe not. Because if you're curious, you got here somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
Somehow.
You're listening to this somehow. So we came to a question recently in our lives that we're just like, we gotta face it. We gotta figure this shit out. We're just gonna perpetuate our misery.
And you might be seeing this. You might be seeing this kind of sentiment elsewhere. People like Jordan Peterson or Dave Rubin. There's lots of others. There are many philosophers throughout time. Socrates being a hilariously famous philosopher that would sit in the forum and just ask people questions until they couldn't give him answers. He was doing that back then. Yeah. So. There's nothing new under the sun.
Did they like that guy?
No, they didn't.
Did they like him? No.
People really didn't like Socrates.
People don't like to question.
People didn't like Galileo either.
No.
Especially the church.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't like him at all.
So we're just putting forth some ideas as just 2 normal people that have come to realize some certain things about the world. And we take inspiration from many things. Never let someone tell you that just because inspiration comes from a certain source that it's unoriginal and that you shouldn't follow it. I see a lot of people hearing Peterson's advice and saying, "Oh, here's just another edgy person with Peterson talking points," and it's to me.
They say that and they've never,
they haven't even cleaned their room yet.
No, they haven't.
They haven't
dirty
even cleaned
rooms,
their room.
and that's their style, and they're allowed to express themselves. Right? Okay.
Well, and so if you're taking timeless wisdom, like wisdom from sources like the Bible or wisdom from sources such as Seneca or other great writings, just know that those weren't original ideas either. They got them from somewhere. Humans don't just generate these ideas spontaneously. They're influenced by their environment, and they're influenced by the works of others. So, anyways, so to start, we're going to talk about some broad sort of information to get you a primer to where we're coming from and what we're attempting to do here. And then we'll go through some steps that you can take, that we're taking. I say you as the operative, as in all of us.
Us,
but because we are speaking to you, it's the proper English. So just know that it's not a hierarchy where it's like we are telling you this is what you should do. It's we are doing these same things, and we're trying to parse out the same ideas and trying not to make too much of a mess of it. So this podcast will be centered upon a couple very central tenets. The first tenet is how to improve the meaning of your life. One of the most central ones. Find meaning, pursue it, and stay out of chaos as much as possible. This is a Peterson stand by. He is very big on this idea of staying out of the reach of chaos, but not falling into too much order. So there's a fine line between the two things. So we'll talk about meaning first, because that's a big word. What do I mean by meaning? Meaning is a fairly pragmatic thing to describe it, to me at least. You can describe it fairly objectively with simple terms. This isn't a lofty ideal of meaning. This is a meaning that everyone should be able to understand. And what do I mean by that? Meaning to me, and this is Peterson has echoed this point. Meaning is things, ideas, people, places that you get lost in. So if you're working on a project and you lose track of time, that project has meaning to you. If you are with someone and you're doing something that you find enjoyable and meaningful, you lose track of time. That is meaning. That is the embodiment of it. It is manifested. So there's another meaning is let's say you stub your toe, or somebody breaks up with you, or you fall and break your arm. You suffer pain in all three of those scenarios, and that is meaningful to you because it is immediate. It is visceral. It's something you feel immediately. Nobody can avoid that feeling of pain, and so that also is meaning. So, as a useful little point, we'll be going into a lot of the things that we're going to talk about are things that you have surely felt or had in the back of your mind, but you haven't been able to articulate them. And one of the central ideas behind meaning is that it does exist. It is objective. Mm-hmm. Meaning exists in the world, and if anyone ever tells you that there is no meaning to be found or that meaning isn't real, just ask them, well, if I were to punch you in the face right now, and it would hurt you, and that would matter to you, so it would have meaning. So unless their pain means nothing to them, which some people might say that it doesn't,
it's always
which would be ridiculous. If I burn their house down, they're gonna be mad about it. They're gonna find some meaning in it because it's meaningful to them. Their family's meaningful to them. Their job is meaningful to them. Most edgy people that say that there is no meaning are just lying to themselves, or they're just ignorant as to how much meaning has manifested itself in their life. So meaning, big thing. Pursuit of a meaningful life and trying to do everything in your power to acquire that. And the opposite to this, the antagonist to the protagonist of meaning, is nihilism. Now, nihilism is a very vast topic that we can go into in a lot more detail in separate podcasts, and we have plenty of subjects written down here. But suffice it to know that you probably know what nihilism is, but you might not know to what extent it affects you, because it affects you at every facet and every level of your life, metaphysically, physically, physiologically, psychologically. It affects you in your interactions with everyone in the world. It affects you in the things that you choose to do, the things that you choose not to do, and the unconscious things that you're doing right now are all being affected by a nihilistic enterprise. It is a incredibly dangerous, incredibly harmful subcontext that can creep into your life without you even realizing it for years and years and years and years. And you have to be very cognizant of it. So
it just takes control.
Yeah. It takes control, and it also takes orienting yourself.
Yeah.
So we are going to fight as hard against nihilism as possible. That's
I'm just gonna have to hear such a good argument to go back to feeling that way, I think.
Yeah.
To knowing, or to just feeling like, yep, this is the right choice.
Yeah.
This is it.
I would have to hear a very convincing argument.
It'd have to be.
And there have been plenty of arguments made, but I think that if you continue listening to this podcast in future episodes, you'll realize how ridiculous some of those things are. And Peterson has already pointed out many of them. He's far more articulate than I am. Shapiro has also pointed out
there's a lot of other
many
people.
of them.
And
Rogan has pointed out a lot of it.
Yeah.
There are lots of people that have really put forth a case to make fun of nihilism and its enterprise. And the last thing so pursuing meaning, stopping nihilism, and the last being fulfilling your potential. So pursuing meaning and fulfilling your potential are very intertwined, but potential is something that you have no idea of the bounds of. And I firmly believe that most people are woefully ignorant of the topics they care about, and they're also woefully ignorant of their ability to change the world. And they vastly underestimate their ability to influence their environment, to influence the people that are around them. So fulfilling your potential at every facet of your life is another big thing that I'm going to encourage.
We got into a lot of that on the Lost Forever conversation.
Yeah, the Lost Forever. Yeah, we had an hour Lost conversation.
Starting with this thing right here, you know, and yeah, that's God. There's so many things going on. People just don't realize it. They don't realize it, how it's affecting them, or they're too proud to admit that maybe it's affecting them in a great big way. They think it's just, I just check Reddit like at work.
Yeah.
Think about that statement right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we could start with the steps, and that actually is a good segue. So some steps here. I kind of put together a little bit of like a chart, not a chart, an order of how my experience went in this whole process of kind of becoming more conscious, becoming more cognizant of how I was interacting physically, spiritually, emotionally with the world as I self-actualized in my youth. So self-actualization in the human brain usually occurs when it fully develops. And for women, it's usually earlier, around 20 to 25. Well, I'd say 23. I forget what the average of when women's brains stop developing. And when your brain stops developing and your body has sort of come out of adolescence, and you have taken your position in the world, and you've started to realize who you are, what you want to do, and you have self-actualized your goals, your desires, your passions, your behaviors, your whole psychological profile. Then from there, you live out the rest of your life trying to pursue that meaning, essentially. And so I would say I self-actualized like a normal male, somewhere between 25 and 27. And in this process of self-actualization, I came to realize a lot of these things that many great people have already articulated that I was experiencing, but couldn't put my finger on the pulse of. So one of them was the role of nihilism in pretty much every facet of my life. How it had kind of subverted all of my my conscious efforts to push me in the correct direction. Because we as human beings are terrible employees, and we are even worse bosses. This is a direct quote from Peterson.
Yeah.
We should fire ourselves because we tell ourselves to do things that we don't do. And I think that is a fantastic quote because it is exactly what occurs. Even if I know people that are asleep that they ignore their inner monologue. They ignore their voice, that urge they have inside of them to stop doing the things that are not good for them.
Would you say they live in contradiction?
Yeah, I would say they live in contradiction. Okay. Yeah. To quote Anthony Shuttleworth, my professor at Ohio State,
who I've never met, but now I know a great story about this person.
Yeah, who has another great quote, which is "Living in contradiction without shame," which is his expression of the modern condition, and I've taken that to heart pretty dramatically, and so. Even the people that I know that are asleep, that are living in contradiction like this, even they can see. Oh, I forget where I was going with that. Even they can see that they should be doing certain things. They have a choice. Yeah,
they have a choice. Yeah. That's the difference for me between the deep sleeper and the sleeper. The sleeper knows they go to sleep and they wake up, and they go to sleep and they wake up. The deep sleeper never knows.
Yeah.
They're just never going to be able to.
Completely and utterly ignorant.
And it's not that they're bad people, but the capacity's probably not there for them to really realize, oh, I can change my life. I really can. But I'm falling down. They just don't realize they've ever even had the ability ever in their life. But sleepers know. That's
they
my
just deny it.
Deny it, yeah. They choose to be blissfully ignorant.
Oh, okay. I know where I was going with this now. Yeah. And so in this journey of self-actualization, I went through some steps that I believe have been outlined elsewhere. And they're just my personal observations that I've seen elsewhere in the world. So I figured if I can articulate them, perhaps it will illuminate someone else's journey as well. And so the first step in this whole process of kind of becoming more conscientious of waking up, essentially.
All the names that it has.
Yeah. Some people call this being red-pilled.
Red-pilled, yeah. Leaving the farm.
Yeah, leaving the farm. Yeah, that's a good one. Or in the Bible, it's Abraham's call to go out, leave the home, and leave comfort and go out into the world.
Yeah.
And it's a very classic story. It's told in many, many, many different places. And first thing you have to do is you have to learn that you are in control of your life. You're not a passive actor in this whole thing. You're not in the passenger seat. You're not viewing your life through a small lens. You are the one running the camera. You are a person with your feet on the ground. You're the one going forward. And this is kind of invigorating and also kind of depressing as well, because if you have been leading a terrible life, then you realize that you are the one that's responsible for that.
You have to admit
and that it's no one else's fault.
You have to admit it to yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard.
You have to admit that you are the reason why you're a piece of shit.
Because we think we're so smart. We think there's no way. Yeah. We think we're this is just my life. This is what happened to me because bad luck and things. So it's hard to do. I struggle with it still all the time.
Yeah. You're not a victim of your own life. You are in control of it, and things can happen to you, but you always can do something about it. And until you're obviously dead.
And you can listen to this and let it go in one ear and right out the other, and then nothing will ever change if you can just try it, though. You can try it.
Yeah. And there's another expression of meaning is you could say, well, I really can't stop a lot of the things that are happening to me, so why try to do any of them anyways?
True, yeah.
And yes, your result will be, you won't have to struggle with the idea of change, but nothing will change. So you can take
No, there's always the hope. You can always hope that something will change.
Yeah, you can hope or you can act.
Just, wait for something good to happen.
And if any of you have ever seen Waiting for Godot, you'll know that waiting for something to happen is a terrible recourse. Because nothing is ever going to happen. And so you can take the slow suffering of a mediocre life, or you can attempt to do something.
And what is waiting for it? Just what it is you have to explain.
It's a play about some characters waiting for somebody that never comes.
Okay. I remember I feel like I had heard that term. I never knew what it was, but then you had told me that, and I thought, oh wow, I wish I kind of like had put that together.
That's the plot summary. Yeah. Spoiler, by the way.
Oh, spoiler! And
if anyone ever says that was a spoiler, and it's been out for forever, so I don't feel bad.
How many?
Romeo and Juliet both die.
Spoilers, dude. Fuck.
Yeah,
it was on my wait list of my reading.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't get to see that.
JLB just brought that up to me, by the way. Side note.
What?
We were chatting in email, and we were talking about the Sync book, and he was saying he wonders how many people might actually be reading the book or any book that they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to read that, or they're just putting it on their shelf and kind of like, I'm going to get to reading that.
I mean, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we get more books than them, but the average person, like people we know, who just like get a book and they're like, it looks good on my coffee table.
Mm-hmm. Well, most
girls
people,
will see that.
Most people I know don't even read.
No, I know.
Which is also, I guess I should have put that in the first 4 big things, which is the power of reading. But we'll talk about that. That'll be a huge subject on the podcast.
Yeah.
The power of reading cannot be underestimated at any point in your life. If you're not reading, you need to start reading right now. And I don't mean reading Facebook or reading Instagram posts. Or reading adult fiction or reading comic books. I'm talking about reading great pieces of literature, reading the machinations of minds that are much greater than mine, much greater than yours, much greater than most people's.
And notice you didn't specify, because there's plenty out there.
There are lots out there, yeah.
I don't want people to think, you need to read this one, and I, think my way. Like, no, read something other than the bullshit, because you know what the bullshit is. Yeah. And just read something of substance. And you know, back to the living in contradiction thing. Well, I'm reading, but I should, enjoy fiction. That's fine. Like, enjoy it, whatever. But if you're going to say that you're reading and researching and really thinking.
There is a very definable difference between reading something to where you're engaging and learning. Your neurons in your brain fire differently than if you're reading something like a comic book, which it's a visceral enjoyment. It's a consummation. And you're consuming. And you get dopamine from consuming.
You could still take a lesson from a comic book, I guess,
but you could take a much more articulate. You take very rough, broad stroke lessons from comics.
Glamorized.
It's like, oh, hey, don't live a life of crime because you'll get punished for it, or be a hero because it's what's right to do.
Oh, yeah.
Those are very broad lessons.
Those are good starters, huh?
If you want to go into the weeds and actually read about real morality, then you can read much better works.
Real shit.
With complex things where you realize that humans are not good and evil. They're a combination of both. You can't read Gulag of the Archipelago and come away with a black and white picture of what humanity is. You're going to find that that deeply troubles you philosophically and on many different levels. And it really enlightens you to the capability of what good people can do when they're put in the correct situation. We all have a massive capacity for evil that doesn't fully fall under our cognitive control.
Yeah.
Unless we're aware of it and we can stop it.
What would you say to people who want to say, well, Lexiphane, I don't want to think about that stuff. I don't want to. Yeah. It's too deep. It hurts. I don't like thinking about it. It makes me feel bad. It's hard. I don't want to. What do you say to that?
The answer to that would be yes, it is difficult. And yes, it is hard. And yes, it will make you feel bad because you have not oriented yourself, which is the second part. The second step is you learn that you control your life. Okay. You're at the driver's wheel. Now where are you going to go? You have to decide. You have to orient yourself. You don't just get in your car and drive off into the sunset without an idea of where you want to go. So you orient yourself. You figure out what you believe in, what you want to strive to be, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. And when you orient yourself, you'll discover there are many philosophies and many ways of thinking about things. There's logic and reason and ration, and there are various fundamental principles that you can hold. There's things, fundamental principles such as egalitarianism. There are fundamental principles, such as like socialistic enterprise, the idea of individualism, which is a central tenet of the West. You have to start reading into these.
Okay.
Before what?
Go ahead. I have another question for you.
Before you can just take off and start discovering the meaning of complex things you see and hear and read and experience in the world. You have to start kind of small.
Right. But when would I have time to do any of this?
Oh, yeah,
to think
this is
about
something
this.
we talked about.
Yeah. So remember, we did record this earlier, and we're trying to play catch up with everything we talked about.
Yeah.
And this is something that I it's an excuse I make up all the time too. I do it all the time, and it's something I have to work on. But I never realized how much I did it when I was, buried in Reddit or gaming all the time, and that's why I didn't have time.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of times most people shy away from these kind of topics. I know a lot of people I know personally shy away from this kind of stuff, either through their own volition or they just never have engaged with it, is for that exact reason. Is the assumption that I don't have the time to do this. And I would argue that this is probably the only important thing you should be doing.
Yeah.
Because what you are spending your time on is probably not a very good use of your time. And so what do I mean by that? That seems like pretty harsh critique. If you are content right now, that's good. If you are miserable or unhappy right now, you probably should listen to what I'm about to say. If you are miserable and unhappy right now, in whatever situation you're in, whether it be caused economically, whether it be caused by emotional toll in your life, whatever it may be, if you find yourself coming home from work with no energy, if you find yourself complaining about things to your coworkers or to your friends and family, things that you think that you can't control, for instance, or if you find that no matter how much you do get a chance to do the things you enjoy, like you take a vacation and you get to play video games, hang out with your friends the whole vacation, and then when you go back to work, you're still miserable. If you keep finding this is the case, which I would challenge anyone to say otherwise, because most people probably feel this way, then you need to figure out the meaning. You need to find meaning in your life. And I don't mean get a hobby and, go for the American dream. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the nature of nihilism and the nature of social media and consuming and doing all the things that you're probably wasting your time with. And I mean quite literally wasting your time, because you have a finite amount of time on this earth, and the way you spend it is important. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise, because they're wrong. And so, for instance, if you work 40 hours a week and you find that you don't have time for anything, well, that's patently incorrect. You're sleeping for 40 hours a week, and that's a lot of sleep for an adult. And you're working for 40 hours a week. That leaves you with 80 hours a week. It's 160 hours in a week? Think something like that?
I'm bad at math.
So you have half the week left, and you don't have time for anything. I find that incredibly hard to believe. You have 80 hours. You know how much stuff you can get done in 80 hours?
Well, kids, and other things. The second job,
Yeah.
There's things.
Exactly. And so first of all, if you want to have control of your life, track what your time is being spent doing.
Exactly.
So obviously you're going to sleep for 40 hours a week and you're going to work for 40 hours a week. You can add commute time or whatever that. And then you have whatever other obligations that you have to do. I don't know if you will or not. Most people don't have that many obligations, even though the ones they do have, they complain about endlessly. Like me, I don't have any obligations. I'm pretty lucky, and I don't have to worry about losing time to unfortunate things like I have great health. I don't have to worry about extenuating circumstances, and I can just pursue what I want to do. I do understand that there are things like disabilities that do stop people from pursuing certain things.
My parents would be a good example, which we'll talk about at some point.
Yeah, but broadly speaking, most young people are able-bodied and they don't have any excuses. So they do have control of their life. They just don't want to take the reins.
That's who we're talking to.
And that's who we're talking to. So you have to realize that if you're miserable and you say you don't have any time to do anything, but you spend more than 5 or 6 hours playing video games a week, or you spend more than 20 hours playing video games a week, which that's not unheard of, then you are wasting your time when you could be doing what you say you want to do. That's just a fact. And I'm talking to all my friends out there too. Yeah, if I've ever asked you about something,
it's been me before.
Yeah, and you said, "Oh, I wish I had time." And I know for a fact that you play video games, or you're watching Netflix, or you're doing something else.
See on Xbox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you are not lying to me, but you're not telling me the whole truth, basically. And that's just my personal thing. Now, as a broadly speaking to anyone that's listening, I'm sure you know people in your life. Everybody knows somebody that is like this, that endlessly blames external factors.
It could be you.
Yeah, it could be you. It could be me. It is me sometimes.
Sometimes, absolutely.
We're terrible about acting upon the things that we know we should do, and that's the idea of human motivation comes down to this. Humans are incredibly hard to motivate, and so that's what we're going to be focusing on with this podcast is. First, you take control of your life, and then you orient yourself. You orient yourself by learning. You orient yourself by experiencing. You orient yourself by learning to articulate yourself and explain the complex nuances of things that you probably already know, but you can't parse apart. You have to spend time thinking.
Right.
You do need to spend time thinking and learning and adjusting to different things. Nobody wakes up as a master of anything. You have to be the fool before you can be the wise man. So you orient yourself, and the orientation process takes a lot of different, I guess, sort of steps, a lot of different forms. Like orienting yourself can be as easy as setting goals for yourself and then acting upon them. You can actively seek out ways to learn, challenge what you're doing. Now, I do see this a lot in my friends about challenging themselves. Challenging yourself should have no part about public virtue. So when you're challenging yourself or you're learning, this should not be a public endorsement necessarily. Yeah. So if you start this idea of orienting yourself and learning, you shouldn't be virtue signaling about it, because first, most of us are very primitive apes that don't know that much about anything. Let's get that out of the way. And secondarily, none of us are as good as we think we are. So to publicly sort of exhibit your ability to be more righteous than your neighbor is a very, very bad way to start this process. And it's somewhere where I started there.
I was going to say.
It's really easy to go on Twitter and shit on people that are being stupid. It's very easy to do that. That is not orienting yourself. That is, you have to ask yourself, when you go on Twitter and you make fun of SJWs and lefties, which is very easy to do because they do say stupid things. You have to ask yourself, am I making the world a better place?
Yep.
And you're not. Now, if you're tastefully trolling and you're making comedic light of the situation, like learn to code, learn to code thing with
still wasting time on Twitter. Come on,
but
I'm calling you.
If you're tastefully making light of a subject that is burdening society or whatever, then
you mean comedic relief?
Comedic relief,
Okay.
But that's barely excusable.
I'm biased though because I like comedy.
Same, yeah. And so that's. Virtue signaling in any way, which is something that I'm guilty of or was guilty of, and is not a good place to start. So when you're orienting yourself, I think a good tip in this process is to get away from social media as much as possible.
Yeah, it keeps you from doing the thing that you want, that you're fucking talking about right now.
Yeah.
The thing. That's it. That's what's stopping you. Stop.
Yeah. So if you're busy consuming social media or playing video games, this falls under the video games thing. If you're consuming social media, that means you're not learning. And to anyone out there that says that they learn things on social media, that is bullshit. I'm not even going to entertain your trolling because I don't think I've ever learned anything on social media other than
I'm trying to think of what I've really learned.
a confirmation of human nature.
Yeah.
Of our desire to be, our desire to belong, and of our own narcissism. I mean, social media.
I've learned it's like a circus to watch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
And
social media
like
is a massive display of narcissism and the desire for dopamine. It's a big dopamine machine. And you're also not improving the world by posting selfies every day. So there's that.
Yeah. And bring the arguments. Go ahead. I mean,
and
we'll talk about it.
Please tell me. I mean, if you can explain to me in a paragraph about how posting selfies every day is improving the world or improving your life.
Hashtag influencers.
Yeah. By all means, I'm all ears. So orienting yourself has I think a lot of people lose themselves. I think most men that I know personally, they have learned that they control their life. That's a very easy thing for them to understand. They are quote unquote red pilled. The problem is when they try to orient themselves. This is where most of my friends have fallen. I'd say friends. I mean, most people that I know have fallen off the tracks there a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that they then orient themselves by spending all their time shitting on other people.
Oh, I see.
Which those people deserve to be shit on, but probably not by you.
Because we all deserve to be shit on.
Exactly.
We all need to understand this.
Yes.
Please shit on us. All of us.
Yeah. And, because somewhere in the Twitter arguments, if you go on Twitter, which I would recommend that you don't, if you go on Twitter, somewhere in all those autistic arguments, there actually is somebody saying something of merit, which somebody's not listening to. So you can parse out of 100, trolling comments, one of them is probably a legitimate point. But to sift through all that is a very time-consuming factor. So instead of doing that, reading helps a lot. If you read great works and you invest your time into learning, really learning things that don't give you dopamine, reading books that are hard to read, that you are struggling to understand. You have to read multiple times.
We talked about that the other day.
Yeah.
That sometimes I have to read something, a whole paragraph, like 4 times before and I used to not read books because I was like, well, that's stupid. That book's dumb. Who would read that? Yeah,
exactly.
Now I'm like, I really want to learn that whole paragraph. I want to understand it. I really do.
Because the path to wisdom is very tough. And I learned every time I pick up one of the books that I have so many great books and I have to finish all of them. Every time I pick up a book and I read even small portions of them, I'm learning things and changing my perspective, which your perspective is vastly important. And you can't orient yourself without a fantastic perspective. So in all of this stuff about orienting yourself, you'll find that eventually you'll learn a couple truisms about the world. And so I have one of the truisms listed here, but there's a couple other ones that I just thought of. You will learn that, your parents always told you growing up, life isn't fair. It's actually a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
Life isn't just not fair. Life is suffering, and it's incredibly tragic. And as Peterson put it, it's tainted with malevolence, which is a great way to put it. And this will be very discouraging because you'll be like, wow, I became more aware. I realized all these forces at play in the world that are affecting the things I do and what I want and how I act. So I'm trying to get away from them and self-actualize and make myself a better person, more productive, of more use to the world. And then I realized that a bombshell hits me that, wow, I have to suffer.
Yeah. And it is not it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. I have to suffer and I can't ever stop that.
Yeah.
So.
That's where a lot of people.
A lot of people get off the train.
Off the train, opt out, maybe, you don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very difficult. That's probably where, I don't know, depression comes from a lot, I would say. Yeah,
this is, the existential dread is going to be there. And so this is probably one of the hardest parts about this process of self-improvement is realizing that you have to suffer. And the reason why you want to improve, the reason why you want to find meaning is that so your suffering matters. That's the big takeaway here, is that you're going to suffer. I suffer. I mean, Laura suffers. You know, it's not like you can get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm happy and I'm not suffering anymore. Yeah. And that's it.
Got all this great advice. Here we go.
Yeah. And all I have to do is just go and do this, and then it's done, and then I'm good to go. It's just not that easy.
It's a bit of a trek.
And that's part of being awake, is you realize that it's not that easy. You have to realize that. So, what do you do when you realize this?
Damn, this is a good time to talk about Bird Box.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
The whole movie's about that. The whole, You didn't watch it with me, did you?
Yeah, no, I know. Bird Box, yeah. Okay, so this is a total aside. We'll have a podcast about this probably, but just so everyone is aware, and I say this with no uncertain terms, a Bird Box is propaganda designed to tell you to not only stay asleep, but also that white people are evil. Oh, God. Because every bad guy in that movie is white. And I
didn't want to go that far into it. Good Lord.
Every good guy is not white or is not a man. And I say specifically white men because almost every bad. Isn't there a woman in that gang of people that attacks them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're white though.
But they're all white though.
They are all white, yeah.
You know, the white guy in the with the freezer door thing, white. Mm-hmm. All the white people killing each other,
John
white.
Malcolm.
You know.
White.
And but everyone else is not white are Mary Sue's, basically.
Yeah.
And it's pretty bad that they were that openly just. I mean, the writing is bland.
It was weird
it's weird. Mm-hmm. So, anyways,
but there's more to it than that.
There's a lot more.
There is a lot. It's more about like opening your eyes to the,
Yeah.
They make it look so terrible that opening your eyes and seeing whatever it is, this thing that these people are, they're innocent. They don't want to see. They have to put their blend on. Like, I
mean, they didn't include children just on a whim.
Yeah.
That wasn't something they did because, it might look cool. No, there's underlying concepts there. So we'll have a whole podcast. I'm going to put that down. We need to have a whole podcast on that. Well, while the movie Phenomenon was a social media nightmare and it was terrible that it became such a big thing, you can learn things from these clown shows.
Yeah. There's some really good channels out there on YouTube.
Yeah.
Really dive into this stuff.
Oh, yes.
A lot.
Okay, so what do you do when you realize that life is suffering? Well, you pursue meaning to make your suffering matter. What does that mean? Because that's a pretty bold thing to say. Well, you have to start small. You can't rid the world of suffering completely, so you know that. But you can do everything you can to rid it of suffering slowly or in small amounts. So this is the famous Peterson quote, clean your room. Mm-hmm. And this is something that, people have been talking about forever. The old like thing that your parents might have said or your grandparents might have said is you can't do anything until you do your dishes. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept. You can't go out in the world and protest the injustices and the suffering of the world on such a grandiose scale if your bedroom is a disaster. Mm-hmm. Because it's a manifestation of it's a microcosm of your life. If you have a trash car, and by the way, a trash car, for those that are uninitiated.
We're going to have visuals for this, don't worry. Yeah.
For people that are uninitiated, a trash car is a car that's filled with trash. Mm-hmm. So those people, like your friends that say, when you want to go get in their car, they're like, I got to move some stuff.
Yeah, let me just move
their whole front seat is full of like Wendy's bags and
fries.
Shit. Yeah. And it smells like mold and like grease, like a grease fryer. Yeah. Those people have trash cars and you should make fun of them for them until they clean their cars up because that's disgusting. And also it's just a very bad way to suck at something that's very easy to fix. Yeah. So you got to think about this. So I'm sure all of you guys, I say guys because it's probably mostly guys, but guys and girls, most of you guys have seen the rise of protesting in the United States, either on social media, which is not really protesting, but or in real life. What do you think those people's bedrooms look like? You ever wondered that?
Well, some of them go on webcams and you can see them.
Yeah.
They're not too good.
All those like people in the Antifa masks and all those kids at Berkeley and Harvard. What do you think their dorm rooms look like? What do you think that their bedrooms, what do you think their relationship is with their mother and father? Do you think, this is a genuine question. because it's my impression, because I've met some people that are like the archetypical college student or young person, young angry person, because young people are often angry, which they have things to be angry about.
Yeah,
but
it's very confusing.
They are not old enough and wise enough to know that their anger is misplaced.
Yeah.
This is a timeless tale, by the way. This is not my idea. This is a very, very...
Surprise.
This has been gone over in many...
Did we talk about spoilers? I don't want spoilers.
Yeah, many different texts. It's not a new idea. So it's my impression that they probably have trash cars and that their rooms are probably a mess.
You're so judgy.
And I am judgy. And so why is Lex being so judgmental? Why does it matter if they have unclean rooms? And it does matter, because everything you do, in fact, matters. Yeah. And this is a good old page out of the Peterson book, because what you do in the world affects what's around you. Mm-hmm. You pathologize your reality. So if you are an orderly person and you see disorder, your first instinct, either whether it's unconscious or if it's physical and like you actually do something, is I need to put this in order. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. If you're, and I know this to be true of many people in different professions. Mm-hmm. If it's my profession to be a firefighter and I walk by a building and it's on fire, am I just going to walk by it? Of course not. Yeah. I'm going to do something because I have expertise. If, like for me, if I deal with audio. So if I know someone's having a problem with some kind of audio, I'm going to be able to be like, oh, hey, I work with audio. I can help you out. I'm going to, I pathologize my reality and try to exert it upon the reality that I live in. This extends to most things that you do in your life, whether you realize it or not. If you are a compulsive person, you do things compulsively in many different areas of your life. Mm-hmm. It is not a psychological stretch to say that someone that is compulsively disorderly is going to probably be compulsively disorderly in their behavior and their everyday conduct. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as the person that is a terrible worker at work and a completely orderly person at home. That just doesn't exist. If you don't have any work ethic, your house is probably a disaster. You know, and the flip side of that is there's nobody that's a very pristine, perfect worker at work, like the perfect guy that does everything right and he's constantly on top of everything, that has a disaster for the rest of his life. And I'm not talking about the corporate people. That's not what being disorder. That's being like yes man. Yeah. I'm talking about people that are truly wholesome, that people really they work for a company for 40 years and they're like, that is a great man or that is a great woman. Mm-hmm. Those are not the people with the disasters of houses and the disasters of lives. Those are the people with order in their lives. Yeah. So I do challenge you, before you ever try to cast ill against someone else, just think about it for a second and think, is my life in order first? You know, before you say like how little somebody knows about a subject, for instance, if somebody doesn't know certain philosophies or whatever. Yeah. You know, think about, well, I don't really know anything about that subject either. Yeah. Because I find that people are quite disingenuous when they're insulting someone's intelligence about their own intelligence. Yeah. Because we're all not very smart. We're not nearly as smart as we think we are. We have learned to outsmart ourselves a lot. So when you are orienting yourself and you're trying to avoid nihilism and you're trying to avoid behaviors and habits that are not conducive to growing personally, you have to remember that whatever you're doing, you're pathologizing into your environment, and if you could avoid adding any suffering to the world, that's the goal. Mm-hmm. So generally insulting people's intelligence is not very productive, because is you can't learn somebody. You can teach them, but they have to learn themselves. That's a very backward statement, but it rings true.
And it's hard to do too.
Because you can't tell someone they're asleep. They have to wake up.
Right. They do.
And through this podcast, we're hoping to illuminate various subjects or shed some light on subjects that people have blind spots to.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, we'll probably have subjects show to us that we also have blind spots to.
I hope so. I'd like to become a better person. Hey,
yeah,
better version of myself.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing from this whole sort of path that we're about to go down is if we could say at the end of the day, after all the podcasts are done, I think we're better people now. That's the goal.
Right.
That is the goal. So we'll be doing weekly podcasts.
We have some other people.
Yeah, we have
the
Dark
supposed to
Prince.
be here. The Dark Prince. He's so evil because he doesn't show up.
Yeah, that's the only reason why he's called the Dark Prince.
The Dark Prince.
And we have a couple other people. I've got some old coworkers of mine that are pretty well versed in philosophy, and
it's fun. I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
I hope they really get their asses over here.
But if they do say,
we're gonna keep doing it, I don't care.
I just don't have time, man. Then I'm gonna have to send this podcast.
Xbox, really?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Oh, it's important to spend time with your friend every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to find meaning in your life, or do you want to get good at video games? That's the question. So you can't do both.
But my stats.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been there. I've chosen games over real life for a very long time.
So we're also going to include a weekly tip and probably a weekly reading as well. So and the first time we recorded this, I had a weekly reading, which was T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. This time, I think I'm going to suspend that.
Oh,
and
really?
And I don't know what would be the most basic, easiest read right off the bat. Something that doesn't require. It's not really, or something that a lot of people already read, perhaps.
Oh.
Oh
God. Well, for what subject? Like what?
Well, either what we just talked about, or possibly what we might talk about next week.
Well, I don't want to do the whole pushing certain authors or whatever thing, but just read 12 rules for life, and your life, and your life's gonna change.
Better. Yeah. It'll make your life better. You won't have to do anything. If he heard me say that, he probably would slap me in the face.
He'd be like, "Shut up."
we met Jordan Peterson last fall,
September.
Yeah, September. And if we said, I read your book and my life is perfect now, he probably would look at us like we're stupid.
Yeah. You fixed everything. Thanks, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I didn't have to do anything. I'm not even suffering anymore.
He'd be like, who fucking got a hold of you?
Yeah.
What'd they give you? What did they give you?
Who paid you off? Oh, that's another conversation.
Oh, no. We're not ready to do that kind of stuff yet.
Yeah. So
we have all sorts of fun things that we like to read about and research. And
so
things that we're fascinated by.
I think, I think the read for this period of time because we could recommend a book a week, but that's a lot to read.
It is just to start off.
Yeah.
I'm not even really at a book a week. I
could recommend what I'm reading right now, probably.
Okay, what are you reading right now?
I'm reading From Ritual to Romance by Jesse Watson. This one, it goes into the weeds of Holy Grail Arthurian legends. Mm-hmm. So we have to have a podcast about modernism and postmodernism before we can really talk about that book. But if you're interested in reading a book, read From Ritual to Romance.
Yeah.
It's a great book. T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland is also pretty good. You have to read those in tandem because they were inspired by each other.
Yeah.
So,
what'd you say?
Jesse Watson, she inspired T.S. Eliot to write The Wasteland. So, and both of those are intertwined into each other. So, we can talk about that more in a future podcast. I believe next week we're going to talk about something pretty simple, which will be speech and cognition, articulation, and pretty much how to learn how to stop saying things like
actually,
and actually,
literally,
and literally. Because I find, and I know other people feel this exact same way, and I still suffer from it when I try to speak quickly, is that most people say these words far too often, and it is incredibly detrimental to their articulation.
Yeah.
And how people view them. Because when I hear someone say like a million times in a sentence,
I'm guilty. Very guilty.
They sound stupid. And they sound...
You think I'm stupid?
They sound like someone that I don't want to listen to.
Yeah.
That has nothing of substance to say. Most great orators all great orators don't use words that are useless.
Yeah.
Words such as like, or actually, or literally are in fact useless words because they don't contribute to the meaning of your articulation. So that will be the subject of next podcast.
I'm kind of scared of that one. I'm going to do real bad.
As well as bad advice. We're going to do a whole thing about bad advice. So those two will be in tandem for the next podcast. So I don't have any... some podcasts just stop. They don't even do it.
We don't have an exit thing. What should that be?
I don't know. It'd probably be Lenny barking because that's when we have to stop.
That'll be a...
Hey, Lenny!
We can make a remix.
Yeah.
We'll get the keyboard out.
Metaphysical style.
He's embarrassed.
Yeah, he's embarrassed.
Okay, bye!
Projectile puncture, chronicle matter, bisected injected refractions, computating thoughts through traps of RAM stored in a floppy. T1 line connect intersect, riding brain waves like a silver surfer wireless